All right, these miracles, they just keep coming, guys. There's just so many of them, and I love it. So we're gonna start off with a little quiz today. Um, which miracle is mentioned in all four Gospels? All four. It seems like every week when we weekish, every week when we do these, it's like this one's Matthew, Mark, and Luke. This one's John by himself. We had a couple recently that are just Matthew by himself. Um, Luke likes to do some on his own. But on the list that I've compiled, and there's different ways to look at it, of course. There's one miracle that is mentioned in every gospel. Every gospel tells the story of this miracle, and I'm talking about miracles during Jesus's ministry. And if you guessed Jesus feeding the 5,000, you are correct. This made it to every gospel, which is awesome. And there's very little difference between the Gospels recount of this. John's is a little different. Mark's is a little different. They kind of describe things a little different, but not much. It's pretty much the same. I'm going to use Matthew's. We're going to follow Matthew's. It starts in chapter 14, 13, 14-ish. I like 14 because it says Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion towards them, and he healed their sick. In a moment, I mean, I'm not giving any spoilers because I think everyone knows what happened, but Jesus is about to feed thousands and thousands of people. Before that, which I think is even a greater miracle, he heals the sick in this group, which I'm sure is a ton of people, and it probably took a long time. Jesus healed them, had compassion towards them, and he healed their sick. That is so awesome. Countless people were healed. And then the other Gospels talks about how everyone was following him. Like they saw him healing people, healing the diseases. So everyone was following Jesus. And it was evening. His disciples came to him saying, "This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals, food." Like, hey, it's getting late. People are getting hungry. Let's let everyone go get some food. Like, and I think they almost have to like force them. Like, no one's leaving Jesus. You might be hungry, but you're not going to leave Jesus. If he's teaching, which he was teaching, and he was healing, which he was healing, you're not going to leave that. It's going to be the most incredible thing you've ever seen. And when you hear those teachings and you feel that in your heart, you're not going to be like, "Oh man, I haven't eaten for a couple hours. I'm going to go get some fish or whatever." Yeah, you'd have to be pretty darn hungry, I think, to want to leave Jesus. Anyway, Jesus said unto them, "They need not depart. Give ye them to eat." So he said, "Just give them some food." And they said, "We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. 5 loaves of bread, 2 fishes." They're like, "We have this huge crowd of people. We have 5 loaves and 2 fishes." And then Jesus told them, 18, "Bring them hither." And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass. So Jesus had everybody sit down on the grass. Now, I'm going to skip ahead. There's 5,000 people. Not people, 5,000 men, aside from women and children. 5,000 men. So with the women, with the children, who knows how many people there were? 8,000, 10,000, 20,000? I don't know. Tons. So he has everybody sit down. And then in one of the other Gospels, he says that he has the people break out into groups of 50. So they segment each other off into groups of 50. And he has everyone sit down on the grass. So that's a lot of people. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, looked up to heaven. Now, he's looking up to heaven. We don't always see Jesus doing this. Oftentimes, he heals someone, he performs a miracle without praying, and maybe he's praying in his heart, and he's probably always praying, and he's always talking to his Father. Sure, lots of other things. But as far as mentioning Jesus looking up to the heavens. That does not happen with a lot of the miracles. I like this. He looked up to heaven. He blessed the food. He brake it and gave the loaves to his disciples, and then the disciples to the people. Now I'm guessing that he didn't break 12,000 pieces of bread and 12,000 chunks of fish. I'm guessing he broke the 5 and the 2. And here's the miracle. and they did all eat. They all ate. 10,000, 12,000, 8,000, who knows? Bajillions of people. They all ate. Almost not that much food, and they all ate. And they were filled. Like, not only did they eat, it's not like they each had a little chunk, they were filled, which is amazing. They all eat, and they're filled, and they took up the fragments that remained, and there were 12 baskets full. So after 12,000 people had food and had eaten, and they were full, then they gathered up the leftovers, and the leftovers, there was 12 baskets. I don't know how big 12 baskets of remnants of food are, but it's more than they started with. Way more than they started with. Because even if each loaf was in a basket by itself and each fish was in a basket by itself, we're at 7. We're not at 12. Way more food at the end. And they had eaten were about 5,000 men besides women and children. I think this is amazing. And we have talked about, there's been a lot of healing in the miracles that we've talked about. This healing is more of just a temporal hunger, right? Kind of maybe like turning water into wine, which is the first one we talked about. Now he's multiplying food to feed the hungry, which is very noble to do, something that we should all seek to do. I love that he uses bread and fish. Jesus talks about becoming fishers of men. Jesus talks about he is the bread of life. So I think there's some symbolism with the bread and the fish, just like there was with the wine when Jesus turned water into wine. I love that there's 5,000 people, 5,000 men, aside from women and children. So it's such a big number. I mean, we're talking like, a poorly attended NBA game or something, like that many people, which is so many people. And I think it's such a big number. It's like saying, like in some of my videos, you'll hear me say a bajillion, which is just a big number that I make up. 5,000 is almost like that. There was just like an endless supply of people. There are so many people, we couldn't count them all. But they did. There was 5,000. So there's groups of 50. So Jesus is looking out, 5,000 groups of 50. I'm not sure if it was 50 men in each group or just 50 people. But either way, there's like 100 different sections of people that are being passed the bread and fish, which is crazy. I love that Jesus used what they had. When Jesus turned water into wine, he used water. That's what they had available to them. They were out of other stuff. Here, the people have bread and they have fish, and it sounds that's all we know. We don't know if they have other stuff. They don't have any figs or olives or whatever else they ate. They had bread and fish, and Jesus did the miracle with that bread and fish. He used what they had. And Jesus still does that today. You know, I hope we always look for the symbolism between what he did 2,000 years ago and what he's doing today. He takes our lives. He takes what we have. He takes our water. He takes our bread and fishes, and he multiplies that. He changes that. He creates miracles, and he does amazing things with what we have, where we're at today. And it's always going to be different, right? Earlier miracles were different than the ones he's doing this evening. The miracles yesterday were different than the ones today. And I think the needs always change, which is beautiful because we're all in a different boat, right? Like I probably ask for different miracles and pray for different miracles than you do. And people in my family do, and we're almost in the same boat, but we all have different needs. And Jesus takes what we have and multiplies that. Not only does he multiply that, but there's so much extra. 12,000 people could not eat all of the food that was here. Just like the water into wine. Like it seemed like they had like months and months and months worth of wine when they were done. They could not finish all this food. Like there was so much food, everyone was full, and there was so much left over. Like there was such an abundance. They couldn't eat it all. There was so much food. And I think Jesus's blessings to all of us are in such abundance that it's like too much for us. We talked about the fish breaking the nets. There's just like so many fish, so many blessings. That's how it is in our lives so many times. Also, I think it's interesting, before this happened, the people were hungry. Like the disciples were like, hey, we've got to let these guys go eat. They're hungry. And they had compassion on them for being hungry, which has happened before in the miracles. And they were super hungry, and then Jesus blessed them abundantly. Again, I don't know how come Jesus didn't do this miracle 3 hours ago before they were hungry, or 8 hours ago. But they got to a point that they were hungry and it was time to eat, and everyone wanted to eat, and maybe just the disciples were hungry. Maybe, like we see miracles all the time. It's dinner time. Let's look in their little sundial. Yeah, it's dinner time. Let's go eat. But he blessed them with so much abundance. He blessed them with more than they could consume. 12,000 people, which is, I'm making that up, obviously. I don't know how many. More than they could take. And I think that is the blessings that Jesus awaits us. And I think that if Jesus is not blessing us so abundantly, I think those blessings are coming. I think there is something that we need to learn in the meantime. There is some way we learn or benefit or grow in the interim from not having the food or the hunger satisfied for a moment. But Jesus is all powerful and loving, and he is waiting to bless us abundantly, just like he does with these 5,000 people, more than they can even handle. And I love it. And I think Jesus does that so many times in our life, that he blesses us more abundantly than we can have. I like this. It sounds like Jesus gave the disciples the loaves and the fishes, and then they took it to the different groups of 50. If each group of 50, for math purposes, let's say there was 50 men in each group with their families, for math purposes. So there's 5,000. So there's 100 of these groups around the grass. The disciples would each go to 8 or 9 of these groups and pass the bread and fish to the people in that group. They would have had to go through, and they were all eating. Like, I feel like this would have taken a long time. I don't know how long. It seems like this was like hours of probably everyone eating bread and eating fish, and the baskets were being passed around. And I don't know where the baskets came from. It doesn't matter. Everyone was eating bread and fish, and it probably took a while if you're in group 97 and you're way in the back somewhere, and it takes you 3 hours for the baskets to get to you. I don't know how that works. Probably took a long time. And I don't know if Jesus was teaching, like we read in the Gospels, he was teaching this day, he was healing people this day. But I'm guessing this took a long time, and I love it. And I love that Jesus is so willing to do these miracles, and the disciples' wish was that everyone could be sent home and go get some food. And Jesus had something far better in mind. And I think that's something to remember, is that the disciples, like we're talking the apostles, the original apostles, these guys are amazing. They asked Jesus for something, and even knowing Jesus could do miracles, their wish was let's break and let everyone have a break and go home. Jesus had something far better in mind for them. And I think he does too with so many of our prayers and what we desire in our lives. Jesus has something better. And when the disciples asked Jesus, "Hey, let's break for dinner," and he's like, "I don't know. I got something else in mind." And it's far more amazing. And if Jesus had answered the disciples' prayers, we would never have heard about this day in the scriptures. It would not have made the Gospels. We wouldn't have heard about it at all if Jesus answered the apostles' request as they made it. Instead, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all wrote about it, and we are reading about it 2,000 years later, about what an incredible miracle this is. And same in our lives. When we pray and things don't happen the way they want it to, Jesus has a bigger picture. Jesus has the miracles. The miracles are coming. They are coming. Get ready for them. Expect them. Believe in Jesus. Thank him. Love you guys.